Hey there, welcome to this practice where we're going to get real stable in our roots and sacral region. We're going to do that with a remedial style session. And it's Hatha yoga, but we're going to use some really deliberate activation using props. And so 2 blocks would be helpful. I recommend to have 2 blocks, a wall, so you can have a wall set up, your yoga mat, with the short end of the mat at the wall. If you don't have a wall accessible, you could use a door. And we're also going to use a chair. So I've got a yoga chair here, but you might have a dining chair or even an ottoman that might be able to be moved around. And we'll also may use bolster as well later on. So please take some time to grab those props and get yourself organized for your practice by sitting on your mat anywhere that you like with your feet onto the floor and your knees bent. Open the knees out to the sides and slide the hands down the shins toward the ankles. And just taking a hold wherever is comfortable for you here. If you had sore knees, you might keep the heels out in front or draw the heels in toward the groin. And if you had the sore knees or even feeling super flexible in the hips, maybe too flexible in the hips, then bring the blocks underneath the thighs or the shins so that you can just offer a little bit more stability for the hips. But if you're okay to work with a bit of stretching into the hips, separate now the knees without the blocks there and begin to bounce into the knees. So just take some time here, moving slowly, bouncing into the knees. And you might like to close your eyes down, but you don't have to. And with very gentle pulsing of the knees up and down, just notice maybe if you're able to lengthen your spine, maybe sitting up tall if possible, while you continue to bounce the knees softly. You could stay with that soft bouncing of the knees, or you could increase that to be a bit more dynamic. You don't have to, obviously. Just please know throughout this practice you can make any of the changes that I offer or your own throughout. Really feel empowered to do that, please. And that bouncing in the knees, creating the warmth and lubrication into the ball and socket joint, in the hips, in the groin, and in the legs. And so just when you're ready, you can discontinue that movement, ceasing the movement of the knees, though aware of the movement that's occurring within, the blood flowing, warm and tingling. As you just rest for a moment with your awareness within and the sensations from that movement, now though you are in stillness. And you can begin to blink open your eyes if you had the eyes closed, and then have a look at the feet. If you like, you could begin to poke the thumbs into the feet, offer a little bit of a massage. If you had some massage oil, you could be working with that. You could be working into the arches or the heels or the balls of the feet, or maybe even between the toes, creating space between the toes and rubbing if that feels okay. So after you've done that, looking at your feet still, begin to squeeze the feet in toward each other and just notice what happens in doing this. If you need to, take the feet away from you or keep them drawing in. As you squeeze the feet in, what you'll notice here is the knees will lift up. And that's because you're using the strength in the legs and in the pelvis to enable that squeezing of the feet in toward each other. And just relax, let that go. Maybe another couple of bouncing just to release Anything that might have felt a little stiff there. And we are going to do that throughout this practice. So while we are working with the roots and sacral region, we'll also mix that up with some methods to lighten the energy that can otherwise feel a bit heavy or stuck. Okay, so again, looking at the toes. See the toes, see if you can line up the toes together. So the big toes together, then the second, third, fourth and fifth. And you could maybe use your hands to encourage them to come together. And then begin to move the toes in one direction, although still in contact, just moving in that one direction. They'll keep the heel and the ball of the feet together. And then try to move in the other direction. I don't find this very easy, but this is the point. I'd like to encourage this now, movement of the toes from one side to the other. And then come back to the center. My toes completely separated then, so I'm just reconnecting them now. Feel free to use your hands to do that. But we're going to work now and see if we can create that connection without the hands. So have you got all the 5 toes touching? And then slowly begin to release, maybe from the big toe first, second toe, third, fourth and fifth, and then bringing them back together. And it might not be perfect, doesn't have to be. This is a practice, not about perfection. So slowly, one toe at a time, peeling away from each other, and then slowly coming in toward each other. I find this really, really tricky. See if you can keep pressing each of the toes together until you don't have to. Oh, it's so hard for me. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then back again. Fifth, fourth, third, second, first. Whew. Okay, so that extra focus might have created a little, again, tension. Feel free to cross the legs or come into an alternative position that's comfortable so that we can work with breath to lighten the mood now. This is called horse's breath, and it's going to involve on the exhale, pushing the air out between the lips and letting the lips vibrate. So it's like a rolling of the lips on the exhale. So just get involved when you're ready. This is an excellent somatic practice to release tension. That's our point here. So when you're ready, take a breath in. And just keep going at your own pace, breathing in to fill up. Two rounds. Let's do another 2. So once you've finished that, now just noticing how you're feeling. It might be with tingling in the mouth. It might be that you feel a little silly or playful. Again, that's the point. We're trying to lighten the mood with these little techniques to break up when we otherwise come into those stronger foundations. All right, so scooping the knees up now so the knees come together and the feet out to the sides, and peel the cheeks away. And so you can feel the sit bones on the floor. Again, anywhere but maybe in the middle of the mat, feet toward the top of the mat. Let's use a block here for boat pose in between the thighs. So bring the block and place that in between the thighs so that you can squeeze the block. And I recommend instead of around the knees, into the inner thigh. But if it's uncomfortable for you, you can discontinue. You don't have to do this. You might even just imagine what it would be like to squeeze something in between your thighs. Take your hands now underneath the thighs and then lift the chest when you breathe in, and then very gently begin to lean back. You don't have to lean back too far here. You're already going to feel a bit of a switching on of the deep abdominal muscles, and with the blocks squeezing in, that's going to be really activated from the lowest point in the pelvic floor. So you might like to now, I'm just going to change my position so maybe you could see a different view. Come back to the chest lifting, inhale, back upright, and then again, squeezing the block and leaning back. If you needed to, you could bring the hands to the floor. By all means, please feel free if that's something that you feel you need to. Otherwise, keeping the hands underneath the thighs, and begin to lift your right foot up, shin parallel to the floor, and then when you exhale, bringing now the foot back down. And then go the other side. Your inhale to lift now the other foot, and then your exhale coming down. Keep squeezing the block. You could lift the chest if you need to, or as you continue to lean back, lifting and releasing one foot at a time. Can you feel your deep abdominal muscles switching on from the pelvic floor, lifting up, and from the navel and all around the waist, 360 degrees, the whole waist squeezing inwards. Just keep going 1 or 2 more rounds like this. And if it feels okay for you, stay like this, or maybe you could lift both feet off the floor. Keep squeezing the block if you do choose that, using that to really activate your pelvic floor, and then release. And take the block out from the thighs. Lift your chest upright. Bring the hands to touch, holding the opposite wrist. Lift when you're ready, the chest inhale, and then slowly bring one elbow down at a time. Inhale, lifting chest again, maybe as you push the forearms or elbows down, and then exhale, lifting and walking elbows down as you forward fold. And it'd be great if you could still have your belly and your thighs touching. And if it were okay for your neck, you could be allowing the head to be heavy, and that might even create a stretch in the back of the neck, into the upper back. And this is helpful just to allow cooling and calming after that work that you've been with in your boat pose. Okay, when you're ready, begin to lift your head, your body upright. Take the blocks. Take those blocks back behind you now. Taking the blocks back behind you, but just move them out to the sides. We'll use them later. So blocks over there when you need them later on. And bring your hands to the floor with your fingers pointing forward. Lean toward your hands and then sway from side to side, just so that you can offer a little bit of weight into the hands. And maybe as you sway from side to side, you begin to change the direction of the fingers, pointing the fingers out as you continue to sway from side to side, and then maybe even pointing the fingers back behind you if it's feeling okay. The goal here is to just offer a little bit of a stretch for the hands to support the wrists. For a little bit of activation we're going to do in a moment. And now with your fingers pointing forward again, lean in toward the hands. Your feet are onto the floor about hip distance apart. And then push the hands down and lift the chest up on the inhale. And then as you exhale, just begin to bend into the elbows and let the chest draw down. And then press into the hands and lengthen the arms and lift the chest on your inhale. And as you exhale again, bend into the elbows. Just slowly coming down. And then one more time, lifting on the inhale. You could choose to stay here with your bottom to the floor, or begin to lift your hips up here and turn this into upward facing tabletop position. Keep pressing the hands down. Take care with the neck by keeping the chin toward the chest. You could come down at any time if you need to, or you could take the gaze back behind you if your neck is feeling okay to do that. So if you've got your head back behind, bring your bottom down and then bring the chin toward the chest. And it might be that you turn that into another forward fold. Take a hold of maybe the opposite wrist, lift the chest, inhale, and then slowly in your forward fold. So you can round into the back and just allow again a rest. You might like to clasp the hands. Your legs could be crossed if that feels okay, or any other way. And with the clasp of hands, begin to roll the wrists. And that might be in a infinity sign or shape. in one direction, and then go in the other direction. I don't know how to do the other direction. It seems to want to go back to the original. Don't know how that is for you. Just get curious, see how you go, but really just trying to roll out your wrists and lighten that up. So I'd like to invite you to use the blocks now with your hands onto the blocks back behind you. What you might use here is the fingers just curling down the block, and it might be therefore just the palms, or maybe it's the whole hand pressing onto the block. But this can be a good support, but you're going to need a bit of space here. So maybe have the hands just beyond shoulder distance so that you can perhaps get your bottom through there. You'll find we'll do that soon. All right, so your bottom's still out in front, your feet to the floor. Inhale, lifting the chest here, press the hands down. You could stay here or lift the hips here. And then slowly bring your hips in between the hands and toes up. Let's go again. Feet to the floor, lift the hips, and then slowly bring the bottom back. Your bottom could touch the floor or hover with the toes turning up, and then keep going. Inhale to lift, exhale nice and slow, bottom either to the floor or hovers between the hands, toes to lift, and then ground on the inhale. One more round. And then bring your bottom to the floor. Move the blocks out to the sides, and we might use those again later on. So hopefully you're feeling warm in the hands, the wrists, the shoulders, the core. As you come onto your hands and knees now. So your knees placed underneath your hips, the wrists underneath your shoulders. We're going to use the wall in a moment, and I just want to let you know that sometimes you're just going to need to troubleshoot your position away from the wall. So if you like, you maybe step one foot back and feel that you could press the sole of the foot into the wall while having the legs straight, and that's going to be our goal. So rearrange if you need to. So your hands now again onto the floor, spread the fingers wide, tops of the feet pressing into the floor. And when you inhale, begin to lift your tailbone and draw your chest forward. And when you breathe out, begin to tuck your tail under and your chin toward your chest, rounding into the back. Keep going, just at your pace. The inhale to lift the tail and draw your chest forward, chin to raise. And when you exhale, the tucking of your tail, the rounding in the back, and then the head to hover or chin to the chest. With your breath guiding you, you might like to close the eyes and see if you can imagine this movement is initiated from the tailbone, and there's one vertebrae at a time moving like a wave of movement in the spine. Keep pressing hands down, tops of the feet pushing into the floor. Last round. And on the exhale, let's make that the last round, the rounding of the back. And come back to the neutral position. And now look at your hands and bring your elbows to where they are so the hands can be out in front. You could clasp the hands and perhaps even wrap the hands around the upper arms. And once you see the fingers just curl around the upper arms, not too far, then you know that the elbows are at shoulder height. And so that's what we want here. Your bottom up in the air, clasping hands. And then just relax the chest toward the floor. See what happens when you just let the chest relax. And then push the elbows down and lift the chest away from the floor. So you're using here your shoulder blades, that retraction. And when you're ready, lifting away from the floor. And then slowly releasing down. One more round. So we're using the shoulder girdle to support this movement. A shoulder blade push-up. And let's come into the lifting position away from the floor. So that should feel strong and stable around the shoulders. Just relax the neck here. And then from here, we're going to turn the tail under, round into the back, and let the head heavy, chin toward the chest. And then as you inhale, begin to lift your tailbone and draw the chest through and lift the chin. Let's keep going. On the exhale, tuck the tail under, round into the back, and really feel the movement in the shoulder girdle. And then when you inhale, you're coming down as you lift the tail, and the chest is trying to glide through. Make that now the one more round. So this is Bidalasana or cat-cow with the variation of the forearms to really isolate your awareness into the shoulder girdle. Last exhale, rounding off the back, let the head be heavy, and then come back to the center. So lift away from the floor again, so almost as if you're intending to create a dome in the upper back. As you lift away, just relax the neck. You might need to find that sweet spot here with enough engagement so that you're active, but not too much so that you're feeling with tension. And then begin to extend the right leg back behind you with the toe turned under and push the heel into the wall. So I felt like I needed then to step my left knee into the center just for stability. So keep the active lift of the chest while pushing now the right heel into the wall. Stretching the leg and now feeling that support of the wall. And then bring now the right knee to the floor, and let's go the other side. So extending the left leg, turn the toe under and push the left heel into the wall while actively pressing forearms, elbows down and lifting chest away from the floor, but relax the neck. And then release. Bring both knees to the floor. They might be separated now, and big toes to touch, and bring your head down toward the floor. Your arms out in front if that feels okay for you, but it might even feel better, given the work we've just done around the shoulder girdle, to bring knees, ankles together, and then arms beside your body with the palms facing up. And that might be with curiosity, finding the shape that works best for you, staying still, or perhaps rolling on your forehead from side to side. It might be just the head, or it could be the torso that's moving or swaying from side to side. And then come back to the center and just relax. So have that intention to relax. If you feel like you need to, sigh to release. And let's come back now onto hands and knees. So bring the hands out in front. Come up onto hands and knees, separate the knees hip distance apart, wrists at shoulder distance apart, push the hands down, and let's set this up now so the foot could press into the wall. So right leg now lifted, push the right foot into the wall. You could have the foot, the leg parallel to the floor, and pushing now that right foot into the wall, while pushing hands into the floor and lifting the chest away from the floor. So just notice here as you push the right foot into the wall, you're going to feel fairly stable around the hips. It might be the left foot also into the floor. So keep it nice and stable now as you take the right foot away from the wall. Bend the knee as you exhale and round into the spine as you tuck the knee underneath. And then inhale nice and slowly, lengthen that right leg again and push into the wall to restabilize. Let's keep going. Exhale, keep that stabilizing and round into the back. There is needing some movement in the pelvis, so you're not too stable. You're needing to keep moving. The inhale to lengthen the leg, push into the wall, and the exhale to round into the back. And bring that right knee in toward the chest. One more round. Lengthening that leg. And then when you bring the knee in toward the chest, rounding into the spine, come onto your fingertips here and step the right foot through in between the hands. So take a hold of your blocks now underneath your hands and onto your fingertips. So when you come up onto your fingertips using the blocks, you should be able to get a little bit higher here and give a little bit of grace to the hips. Drawing your chest forward on the inhale, but could you maybe sink the hips down? And then when you breathe out, begin to lean back. You could lift the blocks high if you need, lifting the right toes, lengthening the leg as you lean back, and then draw yourself forward on the inhale. Right foot to ground on the inhale, chest forward, and then when you exhale, it's like a little forward fold and the lift of the right toes to lengthen the leg. Maybe you even like to close your eyes so that you could be here, moving slowly in space, mindful and conscious of the breath and movement together. You might even like to imagine that you are moving through thick air, so there's some resistance to the movement too. I'm looking at strengthening, stabilising into these roots, sacral region and the hips. Last round, when you come forward again, I'll invite you to discontinue the movement. And this time with the blocks remaining underneath the hands and holding on to the blocks. This is going to be helpful to support the wrists now. When you're ready, take that right leg back on the inhale, look forward, chest forward, push the foot into the floor, last round, and then bring that right knee down onto the floor. And we're going to go the other side, so holding on to the blocks, and as you inhale, lift the left foot and push the foot into the wall, leg parallel to the floor. As you push, you can feel that chain reaction, switching on into the leg, pelvis, core, navel drawing in. Then as you exhale, keep pushing that right foot to the floor and then round where the left knee comes underneath the chest. And just keep going now. Inhale to lengthen, but really keep that strength and stability in the hips. Push the foot into the wall, and then as you exhale, the foot comes away from the wall, but you're not losing that stability. So each time you do this, just go at your pace. The pushing of the foot into the wall offers some feedback to you of what it is like to be strong and stable in the hips. And I'd like to invite you to maintain that as you continue to move slowly, mindfully. And the next time you bring that knee in underneath the chest, rounding into the back, and step that left foot in between now the blocks. So just relax now your fingertips onto the blocks, on the high edge if you want to. That'll support your wrists. And if at any time the wrists are feeling sore, you could even use fists onto the blocks as well. Chest drawing forward, push the left foot down on your inhale, forward, hips release down, and then as you exhale, lift the hips, lift the left toes and lean yourself back. And let's keep moving. The inhale to come forward. You can make this a mindful meditation practice with every exhale leaning back and every inhale coming forward, and make that nice and slow. See if you could breathe first and then move so that the movement is encased within the breath. Breath being paramount in our practice. Your eyes might close to help you with that awareness to remain within. Move as if that, again, is with resistance. Interested in the strength and stability of the hips, the freedom of energy that can occur as a result. All right, come back to the center. Forward when you're ready. And using the blocks, hands onto the blocks. This is helpful to support the wrists. And can you now lift that left foot nice and quiet? Lift, 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 and then extend the left leg and push the foot into the wall again. Chest forward, chin in, pushing into the wall. And then nice and slowly ground the knees to the floor. And you can release the blocks away and big toes to touch, knees separated and head resting onto the floor. Just for a moment, just to give yourself again another moment to ground. We're working with the subtle body in this practice. So just noticing those subtle changes that are occurring in the strength and activation around the legs, hips, and what that might be presenting to you. Come again onto your hands and knees. Your hands on the floor. Underneath the wrists. This time turn the toes under. You could, if you needed to, use the blocks. This is very helpful for using blocks to support wrists, or if you need to, your fists to the floor, or you could even use elbows to the floor. We're going to work with downward facing dog in a moment. So spreading the fingers, place the hands, push into the floor, turn toes under. When you inhale, lift the tail, draw the chest forward. And when you exhale, come back to the center and lift the knees off the floor. And let's do that 2 more times. Inhale to bring the knees down to the floor, lift the tail, draw your chest forward. And when you exhale, tuck the tail under, lifting the knees off the floor. And 1 more round. The inhale, nice and slowly, knees to land, tail to raise, chest to forward. And when you exhale, return to center, then tuck tail and lift knees off the floor. Downward facing dog, we're going to remain here now. And it might be that you remain still, or maybe pedal the heels up and down, one at a time. Or you come up onto the alternate tippy toes. And just take it easy. In this down face dog, relax the neck. Maybe there's a yes, no nod here. Tuck your chin in. And find some stillness now as you ground into the hands. All right, so you should be a little bit away from the wall here. If you need to, step further away from the wall. So now then when you walk the hands back toward the feet in a forward fold, lean your butt into the wall. And then you should be able to feel your belly and your thigh touch. And if that's not possible, bend the knees so indeed you can. Relax the neck, maybe a yes, no nod. And just letting your hands beside your feet rest. This is a variation of Uttanasana, which is considered to be a bit more restorative. Otherwise, an intense forward fold if you were not leaning into the wall. As you lean into the wall, you could feel the sit bones, the left sit bone, the right sit bone, and possibly not the tailbone, but maybe you could begin to imagine where the tailbone is. And then tuck the tailbone under as you begin to raise your torso and your hands off the floor, and then stack your vertebrae one on top of the other as you lean out into the wall upright. Keep your feet where they are. Inhale, raise arms up and overhead. Bring the hands together and then down through the center. And let's go the other way. Chin in toward the chest, round into the upper back. Releasing the hands now, so the arms are heavy. And you'll feel the tailbone lifting up and the sit bones coming into contact again with the wall. And just staying here. Begin to walk the feet a little bit closer to the wall. Take your bottom away from the wall and walk your hands forward toward the top of the mat. Bring your knees down onto the floor. Lift your chest away from the floor. And then release your chest toward the floor. So keep the arms straight when you do that. Inhale, lifting as you push the hands down, the chest away from the floor. And then your exhale, the chest coming toward the floor. This is again a shoulder blade push-up with your hands instead of elbows. Your inhale to lift away from the floor. The exhale coming down. 1 more round, lifting away from the floor. This time stay here with that dome in the upper back and bend into the elbows. Come halfway down and then all the way down onto the belly. You can rest if you like, one cheek to the mat, arms long beside your body, palms facing up, and maybe a rock from side to side of the hips. Alrighty, so again, we're working with activating into the root region. We're going to try something in this position. Head to the floor when you're ready. And as you inhale, begin to lift your arms, legs, chest, your head off the floor. And staying here, this is Shalabhasana. And then come down a little bit, extend the legs apart. Then as you exhale, squeeze the legs in toward each other and lift the chest. Inhale, coming down, maybe all the way or hover. Then as you exhale, squeeze the legs in, lift the chest. Last round. Inhale to come down just a little to reset. Exhale, squeeze the legs in, the thighs squeezing in, the chest lifting up, and stay here as you continue to breathe. Shalabhasana now with your root lock engaged. So you could even imagine that you've got that block in between the thighs. Now your thighs might not be touching, but trying to. Just keep squeezing them in, pushing pubic bone down, lifting chest up, and then relax. And bring the other cheek onto the floor, and maybe a roll and a rock for your hips from side to side. And just noticing how that's feeling. Releasing any tension you might have created there. Just allowing now your stillness as you rest your belly to the floor, your chest and the front of the legs. I'd like to invite you to bring your belly toward your breath toward your belly. When you breathe in, can you feel your belly pushing down to the floor? And when you breathe out, away from the floor. And just a couple more rounds like that so that you can indeed be with that sense of fullness of breath to the belly as a method for cooling and calming. And you can discontinue that now and bring the hands underneath the shoulders, your forehead again to the floor. Press yourself up onto hands and knees. Turn the toes under. And then begin to lift the knees off the floor. In down face dog, it might be that your heels now are pushing into the wall. If you're close enough to the wall, or if you want to rearrange yourself, and just for many of us, down face dog, heels may not touch the floor. And so you might not know what that feedback is from the heels in contact with something. So the wall is a good point here of contact to enable that feedback of pushing the heels into the wall, or if you've got that into the floor, all good for you. And in any case, the heels drawing into either the wall or the floor is helpful to get that sense of grounding while still pushing the hands into the floor, pushing the floor away from you, turning underarms in toward each other. Begin to step the feet away from the wall, so closer to the hands, and then the hands toward the feet, so that again you could come into Uttanasana with the bottom to the wall, restorative forward fold, and then that rolling up when you're ready, the tail tucking under, the vertebrae stacking, leaning toward the wall as you inhale, raise, reach arms up overhead, and then down through the center, and we'll pause here. And you might like to come away from the wall and stand tall. Or if you feel you like that support, just walk yourself closer to the wall so that you can just have your back into the wall while upright. Alrighty, so we are going to use the wall still, and a reminder, we'll troubleshoot our distance from the wall. You may need blocks or that chair. We'll use that later on, but if you have the chair, it might be useful to bring that in now. Okay, so have a look at your leg and think about its length, your leg length. We've all got different leg lengths, and I'd like to invite you to step yourself away from the wall, one leg length away from the wall. And then keep your left foot forward. Pick up your right foot and step that to now the back of the mat, and push the outside edge of that right foot into the wall. And we've got the feet in line roughly here. Maybe it's heel to heel or heel to arch. So your right foot back, bring your right hand onto your right hip, and then raise your left hand, palm facing down, and look past that left hand. And as you inhale, begin to bend into that front knee. And as you exhale, release and lengthen. It might be that you continue this. Inhale to bend, exhale to lengthen. And if you want a deep bend, then you would probably like to extend that front foot forward a little bit more. Keep going. Inhale to bend, exhale to straighten. Last round. Inhale to bend. Let's stay now and look to that left knee pointing forward. The chest is open. Your right shoulder working into the space back behind. This is a variation of warrior two. If we didn't have the wall there, you could lift that right hand, but we're going to keep that onto that back hip. The front knee bent and push now into the outside edge of that right foot. Again, we're using the wall to offer some feedback for that engagement, that stability into the foundations, our feet. As you push into the outside edge of the right foot, you'll feel the arch on that right side lifting up. Good job. Now you could flip that left hand up toward the sky and release the right hand down the thigh as you lift the left hand up. If your neck's okay, you could look up or look down to that back foot. And keep the front knee bent in a lunge position. And your reversed warrior here. Okay, bring yourself back to the center. If you scooted that front foot forward, step it back again so you've got one leg length distance from the wall. Turn on the toes, bring the hands toward the chest. Now, if you need to, this is where you'll troubleshoot. Bring that left foot in a bit. And you might use either 2 blocks here or a chair. I like the chair. So begin to lean into that front foot. And then either bring hands onto the chair or the blocks and lift the right foot up and push the right foot into the wall. So this is a variation of Virabhadrasana 3, Flying Warrior. As you push now that right foot in the wall, you're going to be feeling, sensing that strength and stability in the hips, left foot grounded. We don't want that right foot too high. We need to keep that right leg parallel to the floor. And the right toes, the toes are pointing down. So maybe look past your belly, looking down the thigh, and you should be able to see your ankle. And staying here just for another moment. We're going to turn this into another shape here. Keep your left foot grounded, but bring now the left hand so it's roughly underneath the left shoulder. Bring your right hand onto the right hip and begin to turn the right toes out toward the right side, and that's going to open your chest, your hips as well. As you push into the right foot, right hand could stay onto the hip, or it might be that you raise that right hand up toward the sky in Ardha Chandrasana. So you could be light into the fingers perhaps. If you feel that you don't even need the chair, you could move that away, and you're extending in opposite directions with the hands. And then really slowly coming back. So now that right foot points down, hands onto the chair. And then send some weight to that left foot as you bring the right knee up toward your chest. On your inhale, lifting. And then as you exhale, grounding down. And just pause here. There might be a little movement, shaking out of the feet. And we'll get organized for the other side. I've got a feeling this video makes it look like my rights and lefts are odd, so please excuse me. I hope this works for you. Now your right foot's going to stay one leg length away from the wall, while your left foot comes back, your toes pointing out to the side, out to the left side, so you can push the outside edge of the left foot now into the wall. Left hand onto the hip, raise the right hand up, straight legs, inhale, lift. Exhale, begin to bend into that front knee. Inhale to lift. Exhale to bend. And keep going here, but awareness now of that right knee pointing forward as you bend, not collapsing in or out. Keep the strength as you bend into that knee, and then pause and hold. If you want a deep bend, you might like scooting that right foot forward because you wouldn't want to overbend into the knee. You should be able to see past the big toe here. Keep pushing into the outside edge of that back foot, into the wall. Palm facing down, the left shoulder tracks into the space behind, so the chest is open to the side of the mat. And the gaze down the front hand. Unless you've got a sore neck, just look likewise to the side. Virabhadrasana 2. Can you feel the left arch lifting up? That right knee still tracking forward. And our reverse now. With the right palm facing up, the left hand could slide down the back of the thighs. You inhale, raise the right hand up. Maybe look down to the back foot if your neck's feeling a little bit twitchy. And feel the stretch up that right side of the body. And let's come back now. Torso upright. Maybe heel toe the foot in toward the wall. Hands to touch. Leaning into that right foot now. With the hips pointing forward. If you need to, bring the chair in if you had moved that. Sending the weight to that right foot. Lifting the left foot up. Remember to troubleshoot if you need to. So you can push the left foot into the wall. And in that, you'll feel that strength and stability offered and support for your balance. In that left leg and hip. So that pointing the toes down, look past the belly, look past the thigh, see the heel, the ankle still in line, so parallel to the floor. And can you work with some of those more subtle engagements now of right foot pushing into the floor, left foot pushing into the wall. Feel the switching on of the pelvic floor and navel drawing in and the whole waist squeezing in. Virabhadrasana 3. Now bring the right hand underneath the right shoulder so that when you lift the left hand and turn the left toes out, you can have here your right wrist, elbow, shoulder aligned with also your left. So the toes turning out to now that left side. You've opened the hips and the chest out to the side. In Ardha Chandrasana with the option to lift now the left hand up. You could look up if your neck's feeling okay. And maybe even release away from the chair. You don't have to. The point here is to use the props in a way that offers you strength and stability. And really slowly begin to release now that left hand onto the chair, the toes pointing to the floor. And then you could either step that left foot straight onto the floor or wait to the right foot, bend the right knee, then bring the left knee in, up, inhale, hands to the chest, exhale, grounding the foot to the floor. Good job. And give it a little sway, shake if that feels good for you to release. We're not going to use the chair again. So feel free to get rid of the chair. All right. So come now to the very top of your mat and separate the feet. And bring the arms out in front. Inhale, lift the chest. Then as you exhale, begin to bend into the knees, sitting down toward a chair. And if it's okay for you, bring that all the way down or come down in any other way into a squat. So your feet out wide, your heels drawing in, your toes drawing out. If you're unable to find a squat, please don't worry about that. It might be instead that your bottom is on the floor and your feet are out in front. You've still got that same sort of shape. And or it might even be that it feels better for you today to sit on those two blocks. This is Malasana, or a yogi squat. And what you'll notice here is that you could be fairly passive here. You could be hanging out. Or you could be pushing into the feet, lifting the chest and grounding while squeezing the elbows into the thighs and the thighs into the elbows. And that's going to feel pretty strong and active. And then release. And bring your bottom to the floor, your feet to the floor. Bending the knees, arms out in front. Lift the chest, inhale, and then slowly lean back and roll your spine down to the floor. There might be a plop, and that'll be okay. Just organizing yourself now with your knees bent, feet toward the top of the mat. And you're going to need some space behind you. So just raise your arms behind you. Just make sure the wall's not so close. And what I thought I might do is move to the side. You can stay where you are, but if I move to the side, you'll be better off in seeing me. All right, you're going to need a block and your bolster nearby. And straight away bring that block in between the thighs. Let's come back to that use of block in between the thighs. The squeezing of the block in the inner thighs creates that chain reaction of engagement into the pelvic floor. We're going to use that for our bridge now. Arms beside your body. Feet parallel to each other at hip distance apart. Turn the toes in just slightly toward each other. Push the heels, the balls, and the toes down. And then when you inhale, squeezing the block in between the thighs, lift the arms and the hips. Take the hands into the space behind, perhaps touch the floor behind you. Then as you exhale, slowly bring the hips down and the arms beside your body. Okay, something different. As you inhale this time, bring the feet up toward the sky. Lengthen the legs while the arms go up and overhead. And then when you exhale, nice and slowly, bring the feet back down, squeeze the block, hips down and hands down. Okay, let's go again. Inhale, raising hips, raising arms up and overhead, squeezing the block. Exhale, bring the hips down, don't let the block go, arms beside your body. On the next inhale, it's the raise of the arms and the feet up toward the sky. And then when you exhale again, your feet to the floor and your arms beside your body. And I'd hope that you can move at your own pace now. Finding a rhythm here with the inhale to raise the arms and the hips. Nice and slowly coming down so you can find that control. One vertebra at a time, rolling down. And on the second inhale, it'll be the arms raised with the feet lifting. Lengthening the legs while trying to stamp the feet up toward the sky. Exhale, bringing the feet down, arms beside the body, and I'll just give you another full round on your own to explore this really slow and mindful. Next time you lift the legs up toward the sky, I'd like to invite you to leave them there and maybe remove the block away. You might bend the knees, maybe offer a little bit of movement in the legs. Might be almost like a pedaling of the heels. Or maybe change that or add to that with swaying. Could be pedaling and swaying. Just offer some freedom in the legs to move anyway, to again release any tension, any heaviness you might have. Now, if it's okay for you, keep the feet lifted, maybe stillness now in the legs, and begin to pulse the feet and shake the legs. So the toes are drawing back toward your face, and the heels are pulsing up and down, and that's going to be shaking the legs. Encouraging a shaking in the legs. You can, if you want to, be using now a shaking in the feet. Or just keep pulsing the heels up and down. And then you can notice how that feels, a tingling, vibration, warmth, as you bring the knees in toward your chest. And maybe a rock from side to side here. Knees in toward the chest, and you might even like a circling of the knees in one direction, and then go in the other direction. Bring your knees back to the center. I'll give you the option to use the block. You don't have to. But this is a nice way, I think, to continue that engagement of the deep abdominal muscles together with a twist. Arms out to the sides, palms facing up. Squeezing the block. And draw the knees away from you now so that you get the knees and the hips aligned. Lift the feet so that the shins are parallel to each other, squeezing the block. Inhale at the center. Then as you exhale, begin to take the knees over toward the left, and then inhale to the center and your exhale over toward the right. And just go slowly here. It might be the knees. Each time you exhale, move to the alternate sides just a little bit, or maybe up to halfway toward the floor. And it might even be that you turn the head in the other direction. Remember, everything's optional. You keep squeezing the block if that's something that you're working with. And therefore, we're using deep abdominal muscles together with the spinal twist. But what you'll find here is the pelvic will remain fairly intact. These techniques are used to engage mula bandha. And when we work with mula bandha, it contains the energy within the pelvic region, in the root region, and that's energizing, grounding, and offering greater stability and strength in your foundation. So once you've gone out to the right side again, then you can discontinue and take the block away. If you felt like doing a twist, you could please feel free to hold the twist if you're wanting to do that. But I'd like to offer something a little different now. With your feet to the floor, I'd like to invite you to bring a bolster in underneath your hips. The safest way, I think, to do that is actually to bring the bolster underneath your knees and then use... I've got it all muddled up here, but if you've got it under your knees, no grace here, lift your hips, and then you could use the heels to push it up as high as you can towards your butt and then bring it underneath your butt. I definitely didn't do that very well, but hopefully yours feels better. So here you are in a resting bridge shape now with the bolster underneath your sacrum. Your sacrum's just below your lower back. It's the back of the pelvis. Plate-like fused discs together, just above the tailbone. And that together with the tailbone and the root region's been our focus today. And you don't need to do anything in this shape, though just a feeling and sensing into that region at the back of the pelvis, resting now on the soft support beneath in the bolster. As you turn your awareness, attention now to the front of the pelvis at the hips. And as you relax in this shape, you'll notice the hips will peel away from each other. It's like they're becoming relaxed. The pelvic bowl relaxing and the hips floating away from each other. It's quite a nice feeling, but it just takes a bit of time for that relaxing to occur, especially because we've been really active in engaging the strength within that region. Just give yourself that time to allow that now to relax. This is a lovely shape to stay in, to enable more restorative outcome. Probably been here for a minute or two now. And you could indeed stay here if you want to continue to explore what it is like to just really relax the pelvis. If you would like a little bit more, so we could change this shape. So just make a decision. If you really like that shape that you're in, you could stay there, or it might be that you extend the legs out in front. Now, you don't have to do that. Or it might be that you give it a try and then realize, nah, I don't want to do that. You feel free to change now or at any time. But this then would change from a more restorative shape to a yin shape. And there were just slight differences in the intention there, with the yin shape offering a stretch across the front of the hips and into the abdomen, the psoas muscle. That little bit of extra stretch is considered to be really mild, hopefully, stress. And that's the intention of yin, as opposed to restorative, where we don't want any stress. So you choose now. If you want to change, feel free. Either the legs long or knees bent. Either way, we're not looking for any pain. And if the legs long has created like a pinching or sharp sensation in the lower back, then I recommend that perhaps you skip that today and just bend the knees and work with the restorative variation of the shape. The same principle applies, that when you remain in the shape for some period of time, your body will relax. But the impact will be different. So just feel and sense now with every breath out that you do relax, release, and let go. You might be very happy with your hands beside your body, or even on your belly or rib cage. And certainly if you're feeling like you've been overstimulated and need to rest and ground, please keep your hands down. Otherwise, it might be that you bring the arms up and rest the back of the hands, the back of the wrists, onto the floor. It might be that they're out to the sides with a bent elbow in a cactus kind of shape. Or it might be that they're up overhead and maybe even holding on to the opposite hand or wrist, just to support the lifting, and though without any effort. So no need to grip, push or pull. The arms up in any shape or form will encourage an uplifting. You can feel that with the stretch now in the chest, an expansion of the rib cage, and the diaphragm, which is your breathing muscle, is going to work a little harder. So this can be a good thing if that is something that you intend to work with, so that every time you inhale, you can feel the expansion of the rib cage as the diaphragm draws down toward the belly. And then as you exhale, it draws back up underneath the rib cage. This is going to be increasing your lung capacity. And that's the part that's creating an uplifting with more life force traveling on the breath, occupying your maybe even the whole lung capacity. And that's not necessary if you're feeling stressed. Please, no need for deep breathing. In that case, more that grounding might be better for you. Breath is a hugely underrated tool in our health and vitality. And so common that we shallow breathe when we're stressed. Chronic stress resulting in a habitual shallow breath. And as a result, the diaphragm, it doesn't get the exercise of extending as much that you are in this shape, for example. So if you need to, bring your hands down. Otherwise, I'll prompt a breath practice now to slow your breath, although long and smooth. I'd like to invite you to count your breath. You can do that on your own. For some of us, it's much better to go on your own, go at your pace, in for a count of 4 and an out for a count of 4. Or I will guide you if you like. If you'd like to be guided, exhale now, so we synchronize with the breath out now. And then take a slow inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath. Feel the ribs expanded. And then exhale nice and slow for 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath for 2. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. One more round on your own. Count silently in your mind. Filling up, holding the breath in just for as long as feels okay. And then let it go really slowly at that count. And then let the breath practice go. Bring your hands down if they're up already. Be gentle. Hands on the bolster or the body or beside you otherwise. And if your legs are extended nice and slowly, bring one heel back and then the other heel. And then lifting your bottom up and use your hands to push the bolster down so that then when you bring your bottom to the floor, you can lengthen your legs and the bolster would be there underneath your knees to support you. I'd like to invite you into Shavasana now. So that would be your final resting shape. I'm going to leave you in Shavasana and I encourage you to be in the shape for at least 10 minutes for a restorative outcome, or maybe you've just got 5 today. But whatever it is, I really want to encourage these moments. And maybe even the most important part of your practice is that giving yourself permission to relax and maybe even reflect on the work that you've done in the practice, the effort that you made to come to your practice. And in that now, as you relax, you could be integrating the benefits deep within the nervous system. Please do stay here for as long as you can. Thank you so much for joining me for your practice. Once you feel ready to finish, please finish the practice in any way that feels meaningful to you. Namaste.